And welcome once again to yet another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. How's everybody doing? I hope you had a great weekend. Just a reminder that you can listen to us on WQVZ Mission Radio, 1700 AM out of Casita, Alabama, every Sunday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. A lot to get into, including the Columbus Lions getting the 54-30 victory over the Peach State Cats. It's a pretty tight game in the beginning. I was actually there yesterday at the Columbus Civic Center. Going to talk Columbus United. They ended up tying with Apotheos FC. The Columbus Clean Stones wrapped up their series with the Knoxville Smokies. And Friday night, I was there at Synovus Park, a big walk-off fashion. David McCabe, he was fantastic. Going to talk everything local, including high school baseball playoffs in Georgia and in Alabama. And I'm also going to talk a little national NBA playoffs. We got the conference finals set. Which NBA finals matchup do you want to see? Going to recap the NFL schedule release because there are some games that are very intriguing. And then I'm going to talk PGA Championship. Going to talk NAIA World Series. That's coming to Columbus. That's a big deal for me just because my alma mater was in it back in 2022. And then we are going to put a bow on this thing, talking a little WNBA as well. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the sports. I'm representing the Lions today. I was there at the Columbus Civic Center for Faith and Family afternoon or night, or whatever you want to call it. Faith and Family night. We'll go with that. How about that atmosphere against the Peach State Cats? And the Peach State Cats came to play. This was 12-12 in the first quarter. And it was a pretty decent crowd at the Columbus Civic Center as the Columbus Lions get the 54-30 victory over Peach State to go to 5-0. They go on the bye. But the cool thing about this game, we had Leandra Robinson performing at halftime. We had a kicker from Fort Valley State who ended up kicking a 45-yard field goal to win $8,000. Mike Peacock had an incredible call that's about to go viral. And sitting back and watching this game as a fan, it made me realize how much I love the Columbus Lions. But I know that there are so many other talented people out there that cover the Lions, and I'm just happy to support the team and talk about the team on my podcast, talk about the team on the Sports Vision's morning show. But I am more than capable of doing anything they need me to do. But that ship has sailed. I mean, I was part of the broadcast back in 2022 and 2023, but unfortunately, there's been some disagreements with maybe some people in the organization, and that's why I've decided to kind of step back and just support the Lions as a fan. And I know that I've had people tell me, "Well, you're in the media. You're never really considered a fan when you're in the media," and that is very true. But I could go to a game and enjoy it and then talk about the game on my podcast or on the Sports Visions morning show, and that's what I'm choosing to do. So the Lions are going to be on a bye next week. They will travel on the road to take on the Mississippi Wolfpack. They're back home June the 6th, military night. That's going to be a great atmosphere as they will be taking on, I believe, that they are taking on the Carolina Predators. So they'll have two more home games, and then we'll put a bow on this season. I think right now the Columbus Lions are the best team in the AAL, and even though the Wheeling Miners are a very good team and they play the Lions close, I think it's these two teams that could possibly meet in the AAL championship. But what an outstanding product. What a game. The atmosphere was absolutely incredible. It was pretty decent crowd yesterday at the Columbus Civic Center for Faith and Family Night. And I'm glad I was able to get to be a part of it because, I'm actually going to be calling Columbus United the next two home games. They conflict with the Columbus Lions schedule. So I won't be able to attend any more Columbus Lions home games. But I'm glad that I'm supporting this team. And I appreciate everything that Roger Beck and Corey Black has done to make this product very special. All right, let's talk Columbus United. They were taking on Apotheos FC at A.J. McClung Memorial Stadium as we had the broadcast on Sports Engine, and they ended up settling for a 1-1 draw. This was a game that saw Apotheos get a early goal on a penalty kick. So Columbus United found themselves down in this match, but they were able to get a penalty kick as Justin Hargroves ended up putting it in the back of the net in the 44th minute, like right before halftime. So this was 1-1 going into the second half. United had some opportunities. There were some questionable calls. There was a call where United was offsides. There was at least 8 yellow cards, including a red card right toward the end. I don't think it would have mattered because United was able to hold on. Once United was a man down, I was just hoping, hey, just settle for the tie. Let's get out of here with a tie. You won the first game, so they end up taking the oar and winning the Chattahoochee Cup. So congratulations to Columbus United FC. And it was the first game of the season at home. And for manager Stuart Flaherty, so far they are still undefeated. They have not lost a match yet. They will be on the road taking on East Atlanta FC this Wednesday. And then back at it at A.J. McClung Memorial Stadium this Saturday, 7:30 kickoff on the pitch. They will be taking on the Southern Soccer Association, also known as the Swarm. And one thing about this team, they got a good bunch of guys. I think that this team is definitely poised to do something special in USL2. Now, they do have some tough matches in front of them, including Birmingham Legion and Dothan United. But I think that Columbus United FC is going to end up putting in the yeoman's work. You have Justin Bangura. He looked fantastic. Once again, had a great game. And Nick Gettridge, the local guy that played soccer at Pacelli, also had a pretty good game as he was just tremendous on defense. All right, let's go from United to the Columbus Cleanstones. How about those Columbus Cleanstones? I was there on Friday night. My daughter was doing something for Gymnastics Unlimited. They were able to do some tumbling exercises down the first base line. That was pretty cool. And we actually left before the fireworks. We left like in the 7th inning. And actually, the Knoxville Smokies were leading. And unfortunately, for Columbus, the Columbus Cleanstones, they were losing in that game. But they did walk it off Friday night. They do get a big win on Saturday. Garrett Bauman with 11 strikeouts. That is a career high for Cleanstones when it comes to the records. But unfortunately, on Sunday, there was a 3-run homer by Knoxville to stun the Cleanstones on Sunday. Edgar Alvarez hits a 3-run homer to give the Knoxville Smokies the win over the Columbus Cleanstones, which is about to go down to Pensacola to take on the Blue Wahoos for a 6-game series on the road. And then they are going to be back at it, taking on the Biloxi Shuckers next week, starting Tuesday at Synovus Park. Synovus Park is going to be available this weekend because the GHSA has got their baseball playoffs. We have got 2 series. I don't know if they start both on Friday and Saturday. I don't know if it's game 1 and game 2 on Friday and then game 1 and game 2 on Saturday. I do know that Troup County is going to be in the GHSA 3A state championship on Saturday. They're playing at 5 and I believe 7:30. So game 1 and game 2 against Pickens, which means on Friday we'll have Gordon Lee and Vidalia, which is going to be Class 1A Division 1. So Synovus Park is going to have 2 of the championships. Let's take a look at the other championships around all the classifications because there's 3 other venues, including Gwinnett Field, where the Gwinnett Stripers play, Advent Health Stadium, where the Rome Emperors play, and Georgia Southern, which is also the site for the GIAA state championships. So let's take a look at those brackets. We're going to go ahead and start with 6A. There is actually a game that's going on right now. They have not decided the 6A bracket just yet. North Paulding is taking on Parkview. Etowah, who won this thing 2 years ago, is awaiting Parkview North Paulding winner. That would be a great matchup. It's going to start May the 26th, and it'll run all the way to May the 27th. We do have the 5A bracket that's already set. Pope is taking on Loganville. And, of course, these games are going to be at Gwinnett Field. The 4A bracket, we have got Kell. Remember, Kell was a 4 seed. They ended up upsetting not only Locust Grove, they upset Harris County, and then they ended up beating East Forsyth and were able to beat Cartersville. They've just had an incredible run, beating number 1 seeds. They were the 4 seed. You could tell they were in a very tough region. Kell is in the championship. That school out of Marietta, they are taking on North Oconee, which North Oconee is a powerhouse in 4A. They won a couple of state championships a couple of years ago against LaGrange. But that 4A classification is going to take place in Rome. The 3A classification, like I mentioned, it is Troup County and Pickens. Troup County got the wins over Peach County 15-5 and 3-2. Pickens was able to defeat Calhoun, another powerhouse in baseball, and Pickens was able to win those games 4-2 and 11-5. So Troup County trying to go back-to-back as the 3A state champions, taking on Pickens. The 2A state championships, which are going to take place at Georgia Southern. Yeah, Georgia Southern. Yeah, Georgia Southern, Pierce County, and Morgan County. Pierce County was the number 1 overall seed. They actually battled with Cook. Morgan County was able to take on Franklin County, who was the runners-up last year. And I think that Morgan County, to beat the defending champions and defeat the runners-up from last year, I think Morgan County, they have a chance to win a baseball championship in the same calendar year as when they won a basketball championship. How great would that be for everybody that lives in Monroe? Pierce County, we know about the history of Pierce County, a football powerhouse trying to win a baseball championship. Remember, Stetson Bennett played at Pierce County. I don't know if he played baseball, but he definitely played football. That's going to be not too far from Blackshear in Statesboro at Georgia Southern. Class 1A Division I. This is going to be a matchup that's going to be at Synovus Park on Friday. It is Gordon Lee. Gordon Lee was the number 1 seed, and they are taking on Vidalia. And Vidalia was actually the number 7 seed. So you got the number 1 seed taking on the number 7 seed in Class 1A Division I. Class 1A Division II, these games are going to be taking place at Georgia Southern. Lanier County is taking on ECI. And then finally, we've got the private bracket, which is going to be in Rome. We've got Holy Innocents Episcopal taking on Wesleyan. Now in Alabama, and they do it a little bit different. They have all the classifications at Choccolocco Park in Oxford, and then they have the Game 2 and Game 3 up at Jacksonville State. So actually going on right now as we speak is the 2A championship. Game 1, Artyon is taking on Mars Hill Bible, and this game should be wrapping up by the time this show airs. And then on Tuesday, we got Game 2 at Jacksonville State, Artyon and Mars Hill Bible, with a Game 3 to follow if needed. So they get 2A out of the way. And then on Tuesday, we got the 4A Game 1, Bibb County and Westbrook Christian at 11 o'clock in the morning. Gordo Glenwood, the 3A championship, Game 1 at Choccolocco Park in Oxford, is going to follow after Bibb County and Westbrook Christian. And we will have the audio broadcast on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We did this last year, excited about doing it again. Making the trip up to Choccolocco Park up in Oxford. Cannot wait for that. And then on Wednesday, Glenwood and Gordo turns around and plays games 2 and 3, if necessary, at Jacksonville State, 4 o'clock, because the Game 2 for the 4A, Bibb County and Westbrook Christian, starts at 10 o'clock, and that could go as long as they need to because they do have a Game 3, if necessary. And then on Wednesday, we got the 6A Game 1 championship at Chocolaca Park. We got Hartselle taking on Spain Park. That's going to be at 11 o'clock in the morning. And then the 1A Game 1, Hubertville taking on Fayetteville. That's going to be at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. On Thursday, we got Game 2 at Jacksonville State. Hartsville taking on Spain Park. Hubertville versus Fayetteville at JSU. That is Game 2 and Game 3 if necessary. And then we start up the 5A and the 7A on Thursday. American Christian taking on Faith Academy is the 5A Game 1 championship, 11 o'clock. And then finally, the 7A Game 1, Hewitt-Trussville taking on Auburn at 2. Friday, they put a bow on this thing at Jacksonville State. American Christian Faith Academy games 2 and 3. And then Hewitt-Trussville, Auburn games 2 and 3. Starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. And of course, this is Eastern time, I believe. Looking at the schedule, more than likely, that's going to be Central time. But I will get confirmation because I always like to be in the know. How about that? The baseball championships. It's going to be exciting. Cannot wait. And by the way, Glenwood girls are in the softball bracket in the Elite Eight. They're going to be playing at Oxford. And you also have the Central girls and Beauregard girls all playing in the Elite Eight in the double elimination softball tournament. That's going to be playing in Oxford. All right, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, we've got the NFL schedule release. I have some thoughts. I will talk about the NFL schedule release. I will also talk the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals. I will preview both series, and then I'll talk a little Braves, PGA Championship, Aaron Rye. Who is Aaron Rye? He won a major. Exciting. It was just a fantastic finish. A lot of great golfers in that. And I'm going to go on a rant about the Preakness. Yes, the clip that went viral about Golden Tempo, I am going to talk about that. You don't want to go anywhere. It's a Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Back after this. And welcome back here to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Hey, let's talk NFL schedule release. This was incredible. I know that when the NFL season starts, there's a lot of fascinating games, and they want to get the best product possible. And you have teams like the Rams that have the most primetime games, and week 1 is going to be fascinating. It's going to start with the Patriots and Seahawks, a rematch of the Super Bowl. That is going to be on Wednesday night. Yeah, we've got Wednesday night football games. Then we've got the Australia game, the 49ers taking on the Rams. That's going to be a very interesting game. We've got the Falcons going to be taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. They will be facing Aaron Rodgers because he is coming back again, and he is reunited with his old coach, Mike McCarthy. So the Atlanta Falcons taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1. The Browns have an easy schedule, kind of setting up Shedeur Sanders for success. The Bears, because of the way they finished last year, the Bears actually have a tough schedule. Still think they're going to be a playoff team because Caleb Williams might be the best quarterback the Bears have had in a long time. There are some teams that don't have any primetime games, like the Jets, like the Titans, like the Cardinals, the Dolphins. They're going to have tough seasons. This is why they don't have any primetime games. But let's take a look at the schedule. I'm excited about the NFL schedule release. First and foremost, week 7. Come on now. The 49ers playing the Falcons. Now, obviously, people know I'm a 49ers fan. So I've invested interest in this game. I've tried to go to every game the 49ers play the Falcons in Atlanta. This will be the first time that I could possibly see a scenario where I end up going. But I missed last time in 2022 because I was in the National Guard and I had drill that weekend. But October 25th, I'm circling the calendar. And as a member of the media, I'm going to try to focus on that local angle that Columbus's own Michael Williams, who played football at Hardaway, who plays defensive end for the 49ers. the fact he's coming home to Georgia, I think that's going to be a pretty cool story. Hopefully he'll be fully healthy when the 49ers play the Falcons in week 7. Just looking around the NFL, I mean, we've got some pretty good Thursday night games. I do think the Panthers take a step back. They made the playoffs last year. They won the division. I still think Bryce Young is a decent quarterback, but he's not lighting the world on fire. I think that Carolina takes a step back. I think the Patriots take a step back. Drake May is good, but the Patriots are going to play a very tough schedule. So we're going to see about that. I do want to talk about the schedule for Thanksgiving because we've got Thanksgiving Eve. The Packers and the Rams. Sign me up for that. You're driving to grandma's house or wherever you're going for Thanksgiving, and that Wednesday night on Netflix, you're going to see a fantastic football game before you sit down with the family and have turkey. And then how about this Thanksgiving lineup? Bears, Lions, Eagles, Cowboys, and Bills, Chiefs. Are you kidding me? This is going to be incredible. And then the Black Friday game is Broncos, Steelers. So you've got an incredible lineup of games. Of course, toward the end of the season, they have the flex schedule. But there's really a lot of great games on the schedule. And some of the teams that I think are going to be very well improved, the New York Giants. The Giants do have some primetime games because the schedulers believe, well, the New York market, the Giants are a very popular team. They believe that John Harbaugh, and with Cam Scatterbo and Malik Neighbors and Jackson Dart, who's going to be progressing more as a second-year starter, the schedulers believe the Giants are going to be very much improved. That's why they're on several primetime games. They are taking on the Cowboys week 1. They do take on the Commanders on a Thursday night. I think the Commanders, if Jalen Daniels comes back and he's fully healthy, I think the Commanders could be a legitimate team that could make the playoffs. But I will have my NFL preview show down the road. There's still plenty of shows to talk about here on the Sports Beat later on in the summer. But yeah, the NFL schedule release. I love it. All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk NBA playoffs. We got the Western Conference Finals tonight. 2 teams that I think are going to be a potential dynasty for the next 10 years. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. This is going to be at OKC. This series could go either way. You got SGA, who won back-to-back MVPs, and then you've got Wemby, who I thought was going to win MVP. But the way the Spurs play, they are a team that is a legit team that's settling that culture that they once had with Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, along with Greg Popovich. The San Antonio Spurs, they've done it through the draft. And they were a team, when Kawhi Leonard left, I felt like the Spurs just dropped off. And then when Popovich retired, well, I thought that there could be a possibility that the Spurs could be a team that's going to be rebuilding for a long time. But Mitch Johnson has come in. They won 62 games this year, and they have done it with high draft picks like Stephon Castle, like Dylan Harper, but they also have done it with veteran players like Harrison Barnes, who won a ring with the Warriors, and then De'Aaron Fox, he was the Kings' best player, and the Kings just got rid of him, which I never understood that. But the San Antonio Spurs, which, by the way, De'Aaron Fox, day-to-day with an ankle sprain. He's questionable against the Thunder tonight. But how about the Thunder and the job that Sam Presti has done to fleece Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from the Clippers from that Paul George trade, and then to get players like Chet Holmgren. He was the number 2 overall pick. He's out with an injury for an entire season, and then coming back for the next season is like getting an extra draft pick. And then you got a guy like Jalen Williams, which, by the way, if Jalen Williams is not healthy, I like the Spurs' chances. But if Jalen Williams plays in this series, give me OKC to win this in 7. I think this series is going to go 7. I honestly do. But the big question is the health of Jalen Williams. I've always been high on Lou Dort. I love a guy that is strictly defense, like a Bruce Bowen, like a Tony Allen. Lou Dort is that guy for the Oklahoma City Thunder. We've got the Eastern Conference Finals, which will be tomorrow night, as the Cleveland Cavaliers back in the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2018 when LeBron left, taking on a well-rested New York Knickerbockers team that ended up sweeping the 76ers. They've been sitting back and waiting for more than a week now. And that long, gruesome series with the Detroit Pistons, not only the Cavaliers knocking off the number one seed, the Pistons, gives home court advantage to the New York Knicks. The big question is rest versus rust. Can the Cleveland Cavaliers steal game one in the Garden, because they have a lot of momentum carrying into the series and the Knicks are well rested? I think the Knicks are the better team. I think the New York Knicks are going to win this series, maybe in 6 or 7 games, to get to the NBA Finals. And I'm going to say it's going to be Knicks Thunder. I would not be shocked if it's Knicks Spurs rematch of the 1999 NBA Finals, which, by the way, that was the last time the Knicks went to the NBA Finals. All right, let's go from the NBA to Major League Baseball. The Atlanta Braves, they continue playing at a high level. They are one of the hottest teams in baseball, but don't look now. The Philadelphia Phillies, 15-4 with Don Mattingly. They're only 8 back from the Atlanta Braves. The Braves were able to take 2 out of 3 against the Boston Red Sox. They have the best record in Major League Baseball with a 32-15 record. They're getting ready to take on the Miami Marlins for 4 games. And one thing about the Braves, they're doing it without injured star Ronald Acuna Jr., but Matt Olson having an MVP year with 15 home runs. Marcio Dubon, where has this guy been? He has been incredible. He has come in. He is second on the team in doubles. And I do think that Ha-Seong Kim is going to eventually get that starting shortstop position, which means Marcio Dubon will probably be a utility guy along with Dominic Smith. They do have some players that are going to be able to step up. Drake Baldwin having a fantastic sophomore season. Ozzie Albies looks like he's going to be an all-star. If there's anything about this team, Austin Riley still batting .220. Mike Yastrzemski is not quite what he was when he was playing with the Giants. Let's take a look at the pitching, because I do think with J.R. Ritchie now in the starting rotation that the Atlanta Braves have the pitching to go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in Major League Baseball, to include the Dodgers. But when you have Chris Sale, a 1.96 ERA, that's lights out. Bryce Elder, he looks like he's going to be an all-star. He's got a 2.01 ERA. Grant Holmes, not a bad ERA. I mean, he's got a 3.80 ERA. We've got J.R. Ritchie, Spencer Strider coming back from injury, and then now Raisel Iglesias, who's got 8 saves on the year. I think that Walt Weiss is a candidate for Manager of the Year, and I think that the Atlanta Braves are going to make the playoffs, and I could see them getting to the NLCS. But if they could find a way to get past the Dodgers, I could see the Braves getting to the World Series and winning another World Series. This is a very special team, but you don't want to peak too soon. You remember a couple of years ago, the Braves had the best record in the National League. They were the number 1 seed, and they fell flat on their face against the Phillies. Thank you, Ranger Suarez. I mean, I was not seeing that coming because the Phillies did steal a game, and this happened the last 2 times that the Braves played the Phillies in the playoffs. They could not beat them at Philly. The Phillies were able to split at Truist Park because Ranger Suarez was just pitching like a Cy Young candidate. So that's just my knock on the whole having to face the Phillies if it comes down to that. That's the one team that if you're a Braves fan, you do not want to face the Phillies in the playoffs. And right now, they are looking pretty good. 15-4 under Don Mattingly. That's not too bad. All right, let's go ahead and take another break. When we come back, WNBA, we've got the big game at State Farm Arena that happened last night. Angel Reese didn't quite have a double-double, but taking on A'ja Wilson, who is really putting the league on her back. She is the GOAT. She is the best player in the WNBA right now. And as much as a fan that I am of Caitlin Clark, it's A'ja Wilson that's carrying the WNBA. And then the PGA Championship, Aaron Rai. Who is Aaron Rai? He won a major He won the PGA Championship. What's next? Can he be a favorite to win the U.S. Open? You don't want to go anywhere. It's Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. One. And welcome back here to the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. Such a great time to be a sports fan. And we got the WNBA that has just been underway the last couple of weeks. The Las Vegas Aces, they get a 1-point victory over the Atlanta Dream. Angel Reese didn't quite have a double-double, but it was a very exciting game because it was a big game and it was the home opener. It was moved to State Farm Arena, and you look at A'ja Wilson, absolutely incredible. She is one of the best players in the WNBA. She did score 20 points, but the other night she had 45 points. She is unstoppable. And the Atlanta Dream, I think holding her to 20 points actually is not bad. Alicia Gray for the Dream had 25 points, but it was Tahina Papau, a point guard that, they drafted her a couple years ago. She's a fantastic player. The Dream were playing without Ryan Howard, which, hopefully she can get back pretty soon. But Angel Reese, I always watch the stats to see Angel Reese and how many points and how many rebounds she gets, but she didn't quite have a double-double. She had 9 points and 8 rebounds, but she's making an impact for the Atlanta Dream, and we'll see how it plays out. Caitlin Clark doing her thing. I mean, she's had a great season. She had 32 points the other night. However, the Indiana Fever lost to the Washington Mystics, and the Indiana Fever, they are a very interesting team because, they have the enforcer, Sophie Cunningham, who, she came from Phoenix. She's supposed to be like Caitlin Clark's protector. You remember when Caitlin Clark was getting banged up in her first couple of years, and Chennedy Carter and Dejanay Carrington, these were just like pests when it comes to guarding Caitlin Clark. Well, they have a pest of their own on the Indiana Fever, Raven Johnson, because I remember she was giving Caitlin Clark fits in the national championship game a couple of years ago. Caitlin Clark is the star of the league. Everybody loves her. She's great. And I'm a huge fan of Caitlin Clark. But A'ja Wilson, a lot of people tend to forget how great and how dominant A'ja Wilson is. When I think of this league, yeah, it's a Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese rivalry, and it always will be because of their history in college. But in reality, wouldn't you say A'ja Wilson, Caitlin Clark would be a more realistic rivalry? That's what I'm thinking. Let's move on to the PGA Championship. Congratulations to Aaron Rai, the Englishman, 31 years old, able to win the PGA Championship. It's his first major. His best finish, tied for 19th in the U.S. Open and in the Open Championship. So I like seeing brand new golfers come out and win. And he was able to win with a -9. He was able to hold off John Rahm and Alex Smalley. They finished with a -6. And, when you have somebody that wins a major for the first time in their career, all eyes are going to be on him in the U.S. Open, taking place June the 15th through the 21st up in the Hamptons in New York. I still think Xander Schauffele, Scottie Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, those are my big three that I thought were going to win this thing. This past weekend, Rory McIlroy finished with a -4. Xander Schauffele finished with a -4, and Scottie Scheffler finished with a -2. I still think that those are my top three that could compete and win in the U.S. Open, but you got to add Aaron Rai to that list and John Rahm. Congratulations to Aaron Rai for winning his first major. Napoleon Solo won the Preakness. I said I was not going to talk Preakness, but I had to throw that in there because that clip of me being furious that Golden Tempo decided not to race in the Preakness, it has gone viral. And I have some thoughts on that. He could possibly race in the Belmont Stakes. I cannot stand this, and I can understand why trainers want to preserve their horse when they win the Kentucky Derby. I mean, we saw what happened with Barbaro, and that was a tragedy. And that part I understand. But why take away from history? What if Golden Tempo wins the Belmont Stake? That could be the biggest what if in the history of horse racing, and I'm not a fan of it. But we got a Preakness winner, we got a Kentucky Derby winner. If they both face off in the Belmont Stakes, that might be something to root for. So that could possibly be something that I'd be interested in. But still, I'm not a fan of the fact that Golden Tempo did not race in the Preakness. All right, well, let's take it back to Columbus, because this weekend the bracket is out. We got the NAIA World Series. I absolutely love this tournament, because back in 2022, I got media credentials, actually for my podcast. I got media credentials to cover this event because my alma mater, Freed-Hardeman University, was in it. They were a 3 seed. There was a lot of high hopes. Unfortunately, they did lose in the first round, and they had to go into the elimination bracket. But I was blessed that I was able to cover this event. The brackets are out. This is going to be held May the 21st through the 27th at the South Commons Complex in Columbus, Georgia. And the bracket is out. 10 teams from the NIA. The 2 top seeds will get a bye. But we've got this thing kicking off Thursday, 10 o'clock in the morning. We got Indiana Wesleyan taking on Marion. And then at 1 o'clock, we got Mobile out of Alabama taking on Our Lady of the Lake from Texas. At 4 o'clock, we got Southern Oregon taking on the Cumberlands from Kentucky. And then at 7 o'clock, we got College of Idaho taking on British Columbia. Madonna from Michigan is the 1 seed. Southeastern from Florida is the 2 seed. And I am pleased to announce that I'm going to be helping out, PA announcing for some of the games on Friday. The elimination bracket on Friday is going to start 10 o'clock, and at 1 o'clock, it's going to be the losers of that first day on Thursday. And then we got the winners bracket at 4 and 7 on Friday, taking on Southeastern from Florida and Madonna, the number 1 overall seed. The championship is going to be on Wednesday, May the 27th. And that's always fun. I had a great time calling that or covering that. I wish I could call it. I actually talked to the NAIA guy 4 years ago, and I told him I expressed interest in doing play-by-play because it would have meant a lot to me to do play-by-play for my alma mater. But back in 2022, I was an unknown broadcaster. Maybe down the road, that could be a possibility. I'm just honored that I got to PA announce last year for several games. I get to PA announce this year for several games. But Ricky Rogers is going to be our main PA announcer guy, and I know he's going to do a fantastic job. What a show. What a time to be a sports fan. This has been an absolute awesome show. I can't thank all my listeners enough. You guys have really been what this is all about, man, because when I went on that big hiatus, I had people reach out to me and say, hey, when are you going to bring back your podcast? When are you going to bring back my podcast, your podcast? Well, I said, it's coming. It finally came. And then the guest. I've had some talks with several guests to try to get them on the show. And I'm really just tweaking some things. I've got production put into it. But thank you for watching the Sports Beat. Make sure that you follow us on the socials. I'm found on Facebook. I'm found on YouTube. I'm also found on Instagram. I'm on the X. I'm also on TikTok. And that's where I'm chopping up my reels. But you could also listen to us on Apple and Spotify on your smart device. So thank you once again. Hope everybody has a great rest of your night, and we will see you next time.